Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ms. Bigger, roll call, please.
Harrington.
Here.
Perkins.
Here.
Musgrave. Here. Brandon.
Here.
Kinnaman.
Here.
Kyer.
Here.
Delaney.
Here, we have a quorum. First on the agenda is the consent agenda. All items listed under consent agenda are considered to be routine and non-controversial by the Village Council and will be approved by one motion. There will be no separate discussion. If discussion is desired, that item will be removed from the consent agenda and discussed separately immediately after consent agenda approval in its normal sequence on the regular agenda. With that being said, it's unusual for the chair to make a motion, but he may. Well, it's not a motion, it's a request to move number 9 under consent agenda, consideration of the approval to rezone 107 Oakwood Street from commercial to neighborhood office commercial to new business, so that will become item number 6 under new business. Therefore, I'll move to adopt the consent or approve the consent agenda as amended.
Second.
We have motion by Delaney, support by Kinnaman. Ms. Bigger, roll call vote, please.
Musgrave.
Yes.
Brandon.
Yes.
Harrington.
Yes.
Kinnaman.
Yes.
Kyer.
Yes.
Perkins.
Yes.
Delaney.
Yes. Motion carries. Presentation, Holly Area Youth Association. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Tina Alvarado. Do I need to state my address?
I believe yes.
Yes.
17088 Fish Lake Road, Holland, Michigan. And thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. I come here just to give an update and maybe some information that for those of you that don't know much about youth assistance. Oakland County is the only county in the state of Michigan that has a program such as this. And it was the brainchild of a Oakland County Family Circuit Court judge and a Bloomfield Hills superintendent. How could they help to reduce juvenile delinquency? Because once a young person gets into the juvenile system, it'll just take over. So they came up with a plan, and that plan entailed that they would kind of run youth assistance out of school districts, since schools have the biggest access to kids, and they're required to go to school until a certain age. And what each school district had to do then was every school system, plus any of the municipalities, had to agree to the philosophy of youth assistance, prevention of juvenile delinquency, and then also to give support. So way back in 1963, the village of Holly, along with the other municipalities that are part of the Holly School District, said that they would give their consent, they'd give their support to Holly Area Youth Assistance, and hence here we are since 1963. So I think that in itself is a testament to the vitality and the need for this program. Like I said, youth assistance is all about preventing juvenile delinquency. And how does that go about? Well, Oakland County Circuit Court Family Division supplies every school district in Oakland County, 26 of them, with a caseworker. That caseworker's position, her duty, or their duty, is to take referrals from schools, police, parents, anyone in the school district, and then meet with the family and that student, come up with a plan to correct the behavior and see where the problem lies. So here in Holly, someone that gets suspended from school for 3 days, or maybe has a 3-day in-school suspension, or maybe he gets expelled, they may be referred to or they may be referred to high, but that doesn't mean that they have to, or they get out of suspension, or they get out of their expulsion. No. What it does mean is that family has the opportunity with the student to meet and see if they can work on this behavior and change the behavior. So there, Holly has an organization where true discipline can occur, and not just punishment. So the student's not just kicked out of school or suspended for a certain amount of years. They're actually given a chance to rehabilitate, if you will. And Holly does use caseworker services. Our year goes from January to December, and so far, since January of 2023, our caseworkers had 72 referrals. Now, I remind you, it's only 52 weeks in the year, and casework goes all year round. The caseworker works all year. That's quite a few students being referred to the office. And from those 72 referrals, just in October, since our meetings are always the first Thursday of the month, we're always like a month behind. So in our November 3rd meeting, our caseworker brought in 14 new referrals. That's quite a bit, 14 new referrals. 3 were from the village, and we always find out where the referrals are coming from. It's kind of good to keep statistics and see where things are happening. And surprisingly, we have another municipality that's kind of moving up, and they've never had that many referrals before. That's okay. So far this year, the village has had 60 referrals, or about 22% of caseworker services. And then anything else that is done by Haya now, we always try to support what we can do for students and families to help support them so maybe they don't go down this road. Usually, programs such as skill building, camp, musical instruments, Jacobson Quinn Toy Project, most of them are based on the application, and the application in order to get youth assistance support is usually based on residency and income. And I was really surprised at the income levels we had to work with this year. So this is federal guidelines where they come up with the classifications of extremely low, low, and middle income, all that. I'll just give you one example. A family of five, the same mom and a dad and 3 kids, if they made $77,000, they were considered low income. So, there you have it. So when I said skill building, it's more like scholarship money. It's called scholarship. This is where families, students, and the schools know about us. So this is where people come to get assistance with pay to play, with driver's education, with credit recovery. Students that fail some classes, they need to take classes and get tested to get their college prep or high school credit. They can come to Haya. We helped 4 people this year. Now remember, they have to have residency and income. 4 people we helped so they could take their test for AP classes. So that made us very happy. And also with skill building, you never know when something financial is going to happen to you. There is a rule, like I said, school rules, everybody follows the rules. It just so happened this year that the salutatorian Holly schools, their family came under some financial distress, and the salutatorian was not going to be able to walk with their graduating class because of unpaid pay to play. Well, because the athletic director knew about how our youth assistants can guide the parent, and so what a wonderful thing, what a wonderful opportunity. We started something new this year because we're always reviewing and saying, okay, how can we help kids? What are they needing? And the board decided to do a shoe program, focusing in on our middle schoolers and high schoolers because their shoes cost the most. And so in September, I was able to meet with the administration staff and counselors at both middle school and high school. And since that time, in September, and then there were things happening where I couldn't get in right away. But so far, we've had 15 referrals. Our 16th student will receive shoes this Saturday as I'm going to go shoe shopping with them. And of those 15, 4 have been from the village so far. So again, the village is giving support, your support that you give Haya, you are utilizing Haya, and money is being spent on the residents of the village. So thank you for letting me speak with you. has a wonderful organization, and just realize that other schools, Fenton doesn't have this, Parkland doesn't have it. I don't know what Fenton does when they have students that want to play football but they can't pay. You know, I don't know what they do for students that have taken AP classes, but their families don't have the extra $100 for the test. But I know what happens in Holly schools. Get hold of High, and we make sure that those kids get what they need. Are there any questions I could answer from the board? Okay, well, thank you very much for letting me speak tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Alvarado. Public hearing, Community Development Block Grant Funds. Ms. Bigger?
Per CDGB regulations, we're holding a public hearing tonight, and it is to discuss the amount allocated to the village for the program year of 2024. This year, we are allocated $20,779. We are allowed to select one public service to receive $3,500 of the $20,000. While there are many worthy organizations that assist village residents, I received requests from 2 organizations this year. One is Neighbor for Neighbor. They assist with payments to prevent homelessness, including emergency rent, mortgage payments, payments for utilities to avoid shut-offs. The document they submitted lists the many other things that they assist with, and it's included in your packets. I believe there's someone here tonight from Neighbor for Neighbor. Or she said she was going to try to come. She might not be here yet.
At the back row, I think they're raising their hands.
No, they're counting something.
Oh.
Oh.
Never mind.
They're not paying attention to the meetings, but they're doing.
I was going to say, well, her name is Cheryl. So I
That
know-
doesn't look like her.
The other organization that applied is Haven of Oakland County. They provide services for victims of domestic violence, dating violence, sexual assault, or stalking. The public hearing is required by Oakland County to receive public comment on the issue.
Very good. I would entertain a motion to go into public hearing regarding the CDBG funds.
So moved.
Right. Motion by Musgrave, support by Perkins to go into public hearing. Ms. Bigger, roll call vote, please.
Brandon.
Yes?
Harrington.
Yes.
Kinnaman.
Yes.
Kyer.
Yes.
Perkins. Musgrave.
Yes.
Delaney.
Yes. Motion carries. We go into public comment at 6:13.
Public hearing.
Or public hearing, excuse me. Thank you. Is there anyone who would like to comment for public hearing on the CDGB funds? Seeing none, hearing none, I believe we need a motion to go out of public hearing.
I have one question.
Yes.
Didn't we provide Haven last year with funds?
We provided Haya last year. The year before we provided Haven.
Correct. Yeah.
Thank you.
I
I'll make
believe
the
I
motion.
listed it in your resolution.
Okay. Make the motion that we exit the public
I
hearing.
think I saw a hand there. Ms. Watt, yes.
Kristen Watt, 102 South First Street, number 3. I actually had asked the same question. I thought it was last year that Haven got it, but it was the year before. I did want to say, I remember when that conversation happened 2 years ago, there was some back and forth on, maybe not everybody was familiar with what Haven was, you know, and why would we not give it to Haya or somebody very much local here to Holly. And I do believe the explanation was that Haven does service people in Holly. We refer them down, it's just they locate in Pontiac. However, I would say that most people in this room, and I think Ms. Tina pointed it out beautifully, a family of 5 who makes $77,000 a year is considered under the poverty level. I fall into that category, by the way. I know what it's like to live in this economy, and many of us do. People who make a really good living just doesn't seem like such a good living anymore in this day and age. And I do know that I have seen families, posts, comments constantly on social media from people always looking for, I need help with Christmas, I need help with my bills, I need help with the light bill. And these are working people. This isn't people just sitting around doing nothing. People working 2 and 3 jobs trying to get by. And I do know that during the pandemic, OLSHA was a lifesaver for probably many people could be in this room right now. OLSHA's out of money. Not out of money, but when you call, they have to wait for the federal government to give them grant money and then whoever donates. Neighbor for Neighbor are changing their process right now. Pretty much call any church in town and you need help with your light bill, I can give you $60. Now I have to go ask Dreyer Funeral Home, and you have to go on a goose chase to come up with $250. These organizations are hurting. People are giving less because they have less. And I think that if we have an opportunity to support Neighbor for Neighbor, who is one of the only organizations in Holly that will pay your water bill, mind you, most of them do not, because we're not affiliated with certain programs through Oakland County and the state of Michigan in the village. Neighbor for Neighbor really actually is one of the few places that can support our families with help with water assistance, along with, electric and stuff. So I would like to advocate that in these great times, especially as the holidays are coming around, that we might consider really supporting Neighbor for Neighbor, who supports our residents specifically who are just trying to get by. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Watt. Anyone else for public comment on this item? Or for the public hearing, I should say. Right, hearing none, seeing none. I'll entertain a motion to go out of public hearing.
So moved?
Second.
Motion by Musgrave, support by Brandon to go out of public hearing. Ms. Bigger, roll call vote, please.
Brandon.
Yes.
Harrington.
Yes.
Kinnaman.
Yes.
Kyer.
Yes.
Perkins.
Yes.
Musgrave.
Yes.
Delaney.
Yes. Motion carries. Presentation, Jeremy Watson.
Good evening, council, audience. Just give me 1 second here. We're going to power things up. So I do have a presentation this evening. So first of all, I would like to thank council and Village of Holly administration for allowing me to put my application in to the Eastern Michigan University Fire Executive Leadership Staff and Command Class of 25. I put my application back in early last summer, and they go through a pretty in-depth vetting process. They select 40 applicants throughout the state of Michigan. I was fortunate enough to be one of those that was selected, and went through the program. It started in late January and ended late October. So we attended 1 week out of every month for over 40 hours, and basically learned Fire Officer 4 information and how to basically be an executive leader in your community. So I can't thank you enough for that opportunity. I can tell you I was the first one in the Village of Holly to graduate from the program. So thank you for that. Next slide, please. So tonight, my presentation is going to be on safeguarding our railroads. In this class, we had to pick a problem that was within our organization. I approached Chief Steve McGee and asked him what would be a problem that we suffer with in the Village of Holly Fire Department. We all have lots of problems, and finding the problem that was entertaining plus productive was a challenge. I was sitting on the couch one night, I was watching world news, it was late February, and all of a sudden a train derailment popped up in Palestine, Ohio, as we're probably all aware. And I knew right then that Village of Holly, with its long history of railroads and being one of the few communities that has a bifurcation where we have 2 tracks that run north, south, east, and west, I thought what a perfect opportunity for us to create a program, create some SOPs, SOGs, standard operating procedures or standard operating guidelines for the Village of Holly Fire Department, not for when, if it happens, but when it happens. So we will go over the presentation. Next slide, please. So the question is the Village of Holly Fire Department prepared for the hazards of a trail derailment? And as I can tell you, when we first started this program, no offense to Chief McGee or the Village of Holly Fire Department, but I didn't feel like we were prepared. And I still think that we have work to do, but I can tell you that we are much farther ahead now than we were a year ago. Right now, 3.1 billion tons of hazardous materials are transported on 160,000 miles of tracks in the United States on an annual basis. If we think about that for a minute, 3.1 billion tons of hazardous materials. It's a lot. With Holly being so tightly knit, we have railroads that run through residential, industrial, our historic downtown, by our schools. We are surrounded by hazards, not only with our waterways. So we looked at several things, of the population being, 5,997 residents in our community to the 2020 census, and our average coverage area of 3.04 square miles. Next slide, please. So we'll start with a little bit of history. The Village of Holly was incorporated in 1865. I know probably a few of us in this room are super savvy with this. I got a lot of this information. Joe Mishler and Linda from the Holly Historic Society were a huge resource and asset. But in 1860, Holly was the first rail junction in Michigan. That says a lot. I know that was a long time ago, but it really put Holly on the map and created the community what it is today. In 1885, the Holly Railroad Depot was constructed, and as we know, it's still in our community. It's a nationally registered landmark, and I know administration and the DDA are working diligently to get that relocated so that now it can be a building that we can all enjoy plus utilize. Next slide, please. So back in 1909 was the first documented train derailment in Holly. It was the Pierre Marquette 1114, and it derailed at the Martha Street curves. At that time, the Martha Street curves had a grain mill in that area, and it completely obliterated the factory. It took over 9 hours for the crews to get the train upright, but as we think about 1909 and what was in our communities, we really didn't have hazardous materials. We had lumber, textiles, those types of items, to where if we fast forward to 2023, which we'll get into, we see lots of hazardous materials going down our rails. Next slide, please. So the first thing I had to do is I had to look at the risks. So we have over 7 miles of tracks here in the Village of Holly with more than 10 railroad crossings. And we need to protect not only the people, the community, but more importantly, our environment. I touched on it briefly in the beginning, in our introduction, about our waterways. If any of these trains were to derail with hazardous materials, not only are we trying to save our people and our community, but also our environment. And I think that's such a key point. So with that, I was able to secure hazmat truck number 3. That truck is a truck that is supplied by Oakland County, and that truck is outfitted with diking, waterway protecting, and also outfitted for chlorine protection. As you know, the Village of Holly has a wastewater plant, and in that wastewater plant, Brian and his staff will have anywhere approximately 450 pounds of chlorine on site. If 100-pound cylinder were to levy or become a hazard, the evacuation zone is 3 miles. So to put that in context, the entire village of Holly would have to be evacuated in the event of that kind of emergency. So I thought securing hazmat truck number 3, it is stationed at 414 North Saginaw currently right now, and is ready for deployment at any time. So what a great resource and an added protection for our community. Next slide, please. I jumped ahead a little bit, and I apologize. But when we look at 3.1 billion tons of hazardous materials going through our community, we have to look at how do we prepare. One way we prepare is creating an SOG, educating our staff members on how to respond and where to respond. Back in May, I reached out to CN Railroad. CN Railroad is one of our trains that run east and west through our community, and I cannot tell you what an asset and a resource they were to the village of Holly. They shipped a guy from North Canada to the village of Holly free of charge, and we put on a presentation on a Saturday, May 11th, where we had over 13 departments. Oakland County Emergency Management Team responded and sat in this presentation that lasted over 6 hours that gave the first responders awareness and how to prepare in the event of a catastrophe such as this. Next slide, please. So with that, we have to look at what's being transported on our railroads. So with the CN network and the relationship that I've built with them, I reached out and I asked for a consist of everything that went through the village of Holly for the years 2022. And it was a 7-page document. I had to sign a non-disclosure. I would love to share that information with you. But it told me exactly the amount of chemicals and the type of chemicals that were coming through our community. So with that document, I took the top 3 hazards that were in our community. Next slide, please. The first one being vinyl chlorine. Vinyl chlorine, as you know, is used in every single one of these houses and in this building right now. It's used in the production of PVC, which transports our water to the taps, the siding on our homes, and a lot of plastic textiles that we may use on an everyday basis. That was one of the chemicals that was levied in the Palestine derailment down in Ohio. Next slide, please. The second one we looked at was crude oil. Crude oil is a necessity that everyone in this room uses on a day-to-day basis. It fuels our homes, it fuels our cars, it fuels the aircraft. Everything runs on, well, not everything, but a lot of things run on crude oil. And a fascinating fact during this research that I found was 35 crude oil rail cars connected together. If that were to explode, it is the equivalent of one Hiroshima bomb. So to put that in context, when you're sitting at the railroad next time and you see those black tanker cars come through, and you count them, you'll be amazed at how many you see that are connected to one another. I haven't seen 35 yet, but I've seen well over 20. Next slide, please. The third element is chlorine. We touched on that briefly. It's a very important chemical compound that not only we use to treat our water, but we use it as a disinfectant. So with these 3 top chemicals that run through our community almost on a daily basis, that's how we started our preparation at the fire department on becoming aware of these chemicals, how to respond to these chemicals, and using the resources available to us. Excuse me, next slide, please. So in that research, I conducted a survey. I reached out to 31 fire chiefs in Oakland County, and 26 of them responded. I conducted interviews with CN Railroad, Operation Lifesaver, CSX Railroad, and Lake State Railroad to gather information about how we can be more prepared. Through that interview process, they enlightened me on some of the tools that were available to the first responders. One of those tools that we have installed on the executive command staff at Holly Fire is the application on our phones, and I'm drawing a blank, and I apologize. But this resource is vetted by the company. You submitted a document to them asking them for permission to share. And AskRail, I apologize. AskRail is the name of that application. And it's basically an encyclopedia of all the trains that run through our community. So if we're sitting at a rail crossing and we see a black rail car come through with 3201 on the placard, we can look at that 3201, it tells us the chemical that's in there, and then in the front of that rail car will be a number. We enter that number into the rail app, and it tells us exactly what is in that car. It's basically a fingerprint. For each one of those cars that travel down our tracks, they are labeled with like a license plate. With that license plate, you are able to tell how much product is in that car, where it came from, and most importantly, how to respond in the event of an emergency. Let's say it's crude oil, then we would know what kind of materials or resources that we would need to respond to that emergency. Next slide, please. So in that survey that we talked briefly about, my first question to those chiefs was, how important is it to have an SOP, a standard operating procedure, in the event that we have an emergency? So an SOP is basically a guideline. You will see it in your packet. I believe it's Appendix A. That breaks down a step-by-step guide or suggestions on procedures of what we would do in that emergency. You can see, I believe it's 9 pages long, our SOP. And once we get done with today's presentation and I get your approval, we will be putting that into action at the fire department. What I found on this survey, as you can see, is 61% of those 26 chiefs that responded said that it was important, but 28% said that it wasn't. So I found that alarming as a potential fire chief, why they thought it wasn't important. So I reached out to those individual chiefs and asked them, and they said, well, we don't have any railroads in our community. And I thought, what a great answer, right? And I says, but chances are your neighboring communities do. And when we get an event of that size, we are calling for your assistance. So they wish that they could go back and change their answer, but I says no, because I need this information to move forward. Next slide, please. So we created some training and resources. If you were to go on to the CN website today, you will see there is unlimited, and when I mean unlimited, thousands of pages of free training for the first responder. The Village of Holly Fire Department just recently purchased Vector Solutions, which is a training platform, electronic training platform. Lieutenant Torm McKay's in the back there. He is the one that is running that program for the Village of Holly Fire Department. But it is full of training and resources and provides the staff member at Holly Village Fire Department to go on to the Vector Solutions and do extracurricular training regarding anything from sexual harassment to train emergencies to EMS continuing education credits and so on. The second one that I touched on was Operation Lifesaver. I did receive 3 certificates that were available to them, and it's basically safety and awareness at your railroad crossings. And then finally, the last resource that you see on there is the AskRail app, which I lost it in my mind, but there it is on the slide. Next slide, please. So, how did the Village of Holly Fire Department prepare? So in your packets, you will see my research paper, my thesis. And in the appendix, you'll see that I have created an SOP, an ICS, which is an incident command structure. We conducted training with the railroads. And my final step is education and public awareness. In 2024, when the weather breaks and it gets a little nicer, we are gonna, at the Village of Holly Fire Department, we are gonna open up a class that will be available to everybody in the community, along with first responders, to just basically give some basic awareness and education of safety on our railroads. With all the events that we have going on downtown, I know Ms. Wallace, there she is, we had an event going on, Blues, Brews, and Barbecue, I believe it was. and a young child got away from their parents. And as that child was running, hysterically lost his mother. That child was approaching the railroad tracks and a train was coming. We immediately scooped up that child and protected him from the hazard, and then relocated that child with its mother within 15 minutes to a half hour. But I think it's so important we take these railroads to an advantage a little bit. We live in the community, we hear them, but we just don't know the risks that are associated with them. So I want to, in the future, in 2024, create a program that not only prepares the fire department, but also can prepare our community in the event that we have an environmental or an emergency, what we would do and what we would expect the homeowners to do if it was in their area. Next slide, please. So my conclusions. This one was really, really tough for Chief McGee, and I know he's watching. He couldn't be here tonight, but to give him a little bit of reassurance, the Village of Holly Fire Department is an all hazards department. We are going to respond to any and all emergencies that are in the community at any time, and we will be prepared to respond and mitigate that response appropriately. So to give him a little bit of comfort with our problem, because it's not just a Village of Holly problem, I think it's a statewide, even maybe a national problem of not being prepared. But we also have the ability for mutual aid. We rely on that, as we did with the downtown fire. We had several departments respond, and we have that same ability for not if, but when train derailment happens in our community. Next slide, please. So at this time, I will entertain any questions from council. And if President Delaney would be so kind, I would also request to field any questions from the audience if he would deem that it would be appropriate.
Absolutely.
Next slide. The next two slides are just basically my references. Next slide. Thank you. So at this time, if council has any questions or comments.
What was our worst derailment accident? What was our worst accident?
So in the village, we didn't that would 1909 would be our worst. If you remember back in,
The one out at Judith Long's?
well, we had this Judith Long's ones, but it wasn't really anything super, not much more than what it was with the Martha Street curve accident. The most recent one, and I apologize, I don't have the numbers in front of me. I'm sure I do, but I can't see them. We had the one just north of Delta 2, where a beaver dam broke, and it was reported in the Tri-County Times. A beaver dam broke, washed out the tracks, and we did have a train derailment. I want to say it was in the early 2000s.
It's 2003.
Perfect.
25 people were injured.
Yep. I think they were evacuated, not injured.
Okay.
Evacuated. And that was, there was no environmental hazard. The train, the container rail train that did derail was empty. Was a propane tank carrier. So there was no hazard other than we had some trains in the water. They got that fixed, but we, knock on wood, we really haven't had a disaster, right? I can tell you right now that through my research, one of the scariest things that I did read, and you know, I'm kind of hesitant to even say it out loud, is the threat of terrorism. The federal government has sent out massive alerts to emergency operations centers throughout the country of our railroads being in such unprotected areas that at any time a terrorist could easily compromise the integrity of the rail tracks, causing a derailment anywhere in the nation, let alone the world. So very, very scary. I don't even think on that realm, but
Mr. Watson, first of all, thank you for your dedication to protect Holly. And when your paper was reviewed, did you receive any critical feedback on the process or application of the content in your proposed standard operation guide in Appendix A?
Thank you, great question. I did receive a 94 on, or a 92 on the paper, 94 on the presentation. I did not receive anything negative in feedback. I wish I would have did a little better. I do have to just educate people in the room and council. At the time that I was going through the staff and command class, I was also 2 days a week plus clinical hours going through the paramedic program, working 40 hours a week, trying to be a dad to my 2 sons, and just being a good friend. So the last 11 months, my family and myself have gone through some tremendous adversity, and I'm so thankful to be here tonight to present this to you. It's kind of a relief to me. Out of the 40 students, I was midway through the pack. Top grade in the class overall was a 99. I wish I could have been there, but I feel that I let you guys down, that I didn't achieve that high honor grade. But I did get, I felt like, a solid score for the class.
Did we just get an apology for your A grade?
Yeah.
As some people know me, I try to be an overachiever. I try to make sure everything is perfect, and sometimes I'm more hard on myself than anybody could ever be. So.
Well, no apology is necessary, but, and I'm certainly not worried about grammar or anything. When I reviewed the SOP, it looks fantastic to me, but what do I know? I'm not educated in fire and safety and chemicals and all of that. So I was simply curious if that follows kind of a standard SOP, if there was any feedback in that way, not grammar or anything like that.
Great question. So I scoured the nation on because that's what we do, right? We rip off and duplicate. We try not to recreate the wheel. I reached out to thousands of fire departments across the country if anybody had an SOP or an SOG on railroad derailments. I found one in Minnesota. They shared it. I didn't copy. I kind of made our own. I did use some highlights off of it. I also used the resources from CN Railroad, Lake State Railroad, and Operation Lifesaver. And then with the help of Chief Steve McGee, who's got 49 years in fire department services, and just kind of created our own that was tailored to meet the resources that we have and the staffing that we have at the fire department.
Well, thank you. I think it makes sense that Holly might be a bit of a trailblazer, and I think we're lucky to have you. I'm unclear on what it is that this council can do to support your SOP. Is there a cost? Is there?
No cost, no, not yet, right? I can tell you, as you see in front of you, you have some coffee cups full of sweetness.
Bribes.
And then my guys also provided you a little saltiness with the popcorn. So as a 10-year employee for the Village of Holly, I've attended and watched many, many council meetings, and I can know they can be a little sweet and they can be a little salty. So I guess, great question, segueing into the salty part of our fire trucks. Right? We are in desperate, desperate need. I can tell you in the last 90 days, we have been down to at least 2 trucks, if not 1 truck. Probably almost 2/3 of the last 90 days. There was 2 weeks where we were down to 1 fire engine. That 1 fire engine has a hole in its tank and can only respond with 300 gallons of water. I know the Village of Holly is limited. We did reach out to FEMA. We put in for the ladder grant. We were one of the very last ones to be denied. I am going to resubmit that application again. I am looking for other ways than to ask the citizens of the Village of Holly or council to delegate money to the fire department for new trucks. But there's going to be a point in time where we are going to have to do something to protect the community. I have a couple ideas. We'll wait a couple months. I think in your packets you will see a letter from Jerry Walker commenting on the transition from Chief McGee to myself. And I have nothing but positive ideas and processes that I want to put in place for the Village of Holly Fire Department, and one of them is securing some funds to not only maybe get 1, but possibly 2, or maybe even 3 fire apparatus at little cost to the Village of Holly. So I'm working diligently on that. I was hoping to have something concrete that I could give you tonight. Unfortunately, I was unable to produce that, but do not be alarmed. We are going to respond and going to do whatever means necessary to mitigate whatever emergency that any resident or business has in the village.
Thank you.
Thank you, miss.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Excuse me, I'd like to ask about the denial for the grant money for the ladder truck. I was wondering, did they give you an explanation why you were denied?
So in this class, I've networked with a young lady from Washington, D.C. I drawing a blank on her name, and she's probably going to be upset with me, but she is from the Congressional Hearing Board. She sits in the Congressional House and helps mitigate FEMA funds. FEMA funds is getting ready to twilight, where that opportunity is going to be no longer available to the nation for first responders. And we are reaching out to our local legislators to try to facilitate the renewal of that grant. In that process, I've also requested a denial hearing. And in that denial hearing, they will kind of give us some tidbits of why possibly we were denied, but not tell us why we were denied. I've sent my request in along with Chief McGee, but I'm still waiting a response. We were just denied just right before Halloween. Excuse me. So, you know, with the federal government and the mess that it, I'm just going to say mess, that it
It's a
is
mess.
now.
No, you were right.
You know, I would hope to hear something by the end of the year, but probably realistically, it's going to be January or maybe even February of 2024 before they get back with me and offer me that opportunity.
I appreciate the fact that you're going to keep going at it.
Well, Grandma always says, right, it's never no until it's no, so
Squeaky wheel gets the grease.
maybe do get that too. So, thank you, sir.
So that information that they might give you early next year, though it won't be specific to what was in your previous grant request, the information they give you could help guide future grant proposals
And I'm hoping
or requests?
I'm hoping it'll help me with this next one.
Okay.
I've heard from other fire chiefs throughout the state that they give you some nuggets
Okay.
throughout that denial process, and you implement those nuggets in your new narrative, things that they may look for. I can tell you that our ladder truck hit all the criteria. The FEMA grant was to eliminate open cab trucks. Ladder 1 is parked out there courtesy of Lieutenant Torr McKay. And if you walk by that, you will see the backseat riders are exposed to the elements. I don't even believe there's a seat. So, you know, we are doing everything in our power, not only to protect the staff of Holly Village Fire Department, but more importantly, have an apparatus that is willing and able to respond to all emergencies. So, fingers crossed, everybody please pray for us to get that, because that'll be free of charge, and they're pricing out anywhere between $1.3 and $2 million each. And right now they're a 3-year lead time. So just to give you some perspective on what it takes to get a new fire truck these days. If we were to order one today, we would not get it until 2025, 2026.
Mr. DeSessa.
Congratulations, Jeremy, on your studies and this presentation. A couple questions on the app. Is that something that anybody can own?
No,
Because
sir.
I assume it has to be secured, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, we had to send a letter in to the company requesting it. And then just with our credentials, we were approved. And we are slowly getting ready to, I was kind of waiting for my presentation tonight, but we are going to be putting that on all of our iPads that respond with all apparatus in the trucks. So once we do a training exercise with our staff members, they will all be trained on how to use it and identify any kind of hazard that may be going down our roads.
Say, the SOP, is part of that, religion evacuation, is that something that was part of your effort? You already have one? I'm just concerned, what does that look like? Is it already out there somewhere? Does it have apparently a life
So, it's not yet, because I was kind of waiting to share with council. But yes, absolutely, everything I try to do is 100% transparent as I can be. I have no problem sharing that information with anybody. I can tell you, I know Holly Area Schools has, kind of been troublesome with, you know, the way this building has been operating, but they've been a huge resource for the fire department. They have opened every one of their buildings up for an evacuation place for the citizens of Holly. So depending on where the emergency takes place and the wind flow will be determining what building we would use as an evacuation area. So I can't tell you which one, but I can tell you that they not only offered their schools, but they offered buses, so that we can get into our communities, get our members, residents out of the community, get them on a bus, ship them to a safe area. I've also networked with Salvation Army. There's so many entities out there that will also come to us, provide housing need, bedding, cots, on a temporary basis, right? Lots of moving parts. I can't say it'll be a flawless transition if it were to ever happen, but at least we have some guidelines to suggest what we should do next.
My question was going to be how much for the fire trucks running you answered that. I believe Chief McGee has mentioned in previous meetings, who knows when it was, but I don't know that it's the solution, but in the interim, since it takes several years to get one, even if we have the money, I believe he has mentioned in the past, are there, I hate to say buy used, but in the interim, what does something like that cost to even obtain like an extra used while waiting type situation?
So I kind of hinted to council earlier that maybe something will be coming down. I was hoping to have it executed by this evening. We have an opportunity to purchase Springfield engines. They have 2 new, slightly used engines. They just received theirs. We currently have our 2 fire engines listed with a broker. We had a guy fly up from Tennessee last week to look at engine 1. And I'm trying to get equal for equal so that it would be no money out of council's pocket or the community. But I've not been able to execute that. But those 2 trucks that we would be able to purchase from Springfield would buy us probably about 5 years. I want to also, before I am excused here, Captain Chris Preston, I don't know if anybody in the community knows of him. He's been on Holly Fire Department for 20 plus years. He is the glue that keeps these trucks on the road. He charges us very minimal, and when I mean minimal, I'm talking maybe 2% of what we would have to pay if we were to have to ship these fire trucks out to get them fixed. So on the record, I just want to tell Captain Chris Preston what a resource and an asset he is, not only for the village fire department, but for the community as a whole. All of our staff is amazing, and I can't thank any of them any more than the other, but he has been a huge asset and resource. As I stated before, just trying to keep them rolling. Tony,
yeah, just quick. So, in terms of all of this, the evacuation plan and whatnot, I know it's not technically a village problem, but the neighborhood at the end of Coxshaw, if there was a derailment, I mean, trains have broken down on that. I understand that's not the village of Holly's responsibility on the other side of the track, but those are the families that go to our schools, those are the families that shop in the neighborhoods, and they're our friends and neighbors. What it can and what is our fire department able to do? Is there any way, I know this has been talked about, is there any way to build some sort of an another access road out of there?
So I'm not the authority having jurisdiction, so I have very little input or say. That is North Oakland Fire Authority's jurisdiction. And I know Chief Lenz has been working diligently with the railroad companies and the township to try to find a solution. it is a serious problem. I cannot tell you, I don't have an answer. I wish I did. I wish I could say, Tony, this is what we need to do. Unfortunately, we don't. In the event of an emergency, my recommendation would be to try to unhook and open up at least a small passage where we can get at least people, if not vehicles up. But, you know, I can tell you that we have very intelligent individuals, not only on Holly Fire Department, but also at North Oakland Fire Authority. And between the two entities, we will come up with some sort of solution for that event during that time in the case of a real emergency.
My question for you would be, since you said that the schools have been very cooperative with you, and you said that you want to do some public education, is there any way, because I see who hangs around our railroads, that's our teens and our children, unfortunately. Is there any way to do an education program for our children that are in our schools so that they understand maybe the awareness more of what trains and what chemicals are and how that would badly hurt them, or what would happen to them in case they were in school when that happened?
No, great question, and I appreciate you asking. I am in the process of trying to offer something at the school level. We are in the elementaries every October for fire prevention, and we teach, you know, how to have a safe plan, escape plan, what to do in case of a fire. I would love to incorporate that. Unfortunately, we're just not quite there yet, but I am working diligently to try to expedite a program that can come in and teach to all levels of Holly school students. But it starts at home, right? And as good parents, we try to communicate with our children. And I think as a parent, if we do not educate our children on what we should and should not be doing, i.e. playing around the railroads, then sometimes we have to look at ourselves in the mirror and do that tough choice of, I need to do more as a parent, right? So I would always recommend, as we are parents, to, when you're sitting at the dinner table, take that opportunity to talk to our students, our children, and educate them on awareness of the tracks. But yes, I am working on that.
Can I ask one maybe final type of question to kind of wrap things up a little bit is, what can we do as a council to help you get this initiated? Does a recommendation or a vote of go ahead with something help, or what?
No, actually, you know, our staff has been kind of learning this process as I go through. I can tell you, two of the individuals in the room tonight, I have used as guinea pigs on my presentation before I even did it for class, getting feedback, and, you know, anytime I prepare a document, I have other people look at it. I basically wanted to give council the courtesy first. If you guys thought it was something that you think is appropriate, then that's all I need, is your support, your recommendation. We will do the rest. That's what we do. I think it's so important to communicate, and if I'm not able to communicate to council where we are as a fire department, then I think that may be a stalemate in future progresses, right? So basically, I just wanted to keep you guys informed. I wanted to thank you because of that opportunity to allow me to go and just kind of show you some of the things, if not one of the things that I had as a takeaway from that class.
Thank you very much,
Appreciate
Mr.
it all.
Watson.
Thanks, Jeremy.
Public comment. Members of the public may address council once recognized by the chairperson. Comments are limited to a maximum of 4 minutes for items not on the agenda. Council may extend this time by up to an additional 4 minutes by a majority vote. For items on the agenda, comments may be made after council discussion prior to council vote. Prior to addressing council, members of the public will please state their name and address for the record. Is there anyone for public comment? Yes, Mr. Rozell.
Hi, and thank you. My name is Dick Russell, and I live at 512 East Maple. I was pretty blown away by what I just heard. That's quite an organization that we've got behind us, and I think we should be proud. Tonight, just for a couple of minutes, I wanted to bring you up to date on another guy that kind of is important to us, and that's Jerry Walker. Jerry Walker, most of you know, has been a friend of mine for quite a long time, and along with being your village manager, he's a good guy. For the last month, he's put up quite a battle with his health. He was diagnosed with cancer, started chemo treatment, then I said he was diagnosed with cancer about a month ago, maybe 6 weeks ago. And he started in with his treatments on that and so on, but then he developed a problem internally, and I'm not going to get into all of his issues, but he was bleeding internally. And about 3 weeks ago, his wife found him laying in the floor, bleeding out, basically. And she called me. We transported him by ambulance to Beaumont, yeah, Royal Oak. And honestly, it was touch and go. We were in the emergency room for several nights. Then he got put into critical care. He was on a ventilator, and I honestly had a couple of times when I wasn't sure how it was going to go. He's probably going to be mad at me for telling you that, but that's how serious it was. And they finally, after 2 surgeries, got the bleeding figured out, got it stopped, and he made a remarkable turnaround. He is back home now. He's taking his chemo, and I think he's going to recover nicely. But it was a tough situation, and I just want you to know that that's how it was. I want to say a couple things about Jerry that maybe some of you don't know. He was a police officer for 30 years, and he began that career right here in Holly. A lot of people don't know that either. But he was a reserve officer in Holly for 78, 79, and 80. And after that, he was hired by Walled Lake, and he went to work as a patrol officer in Walled Lake in 1981. He worked his way up, and many of you, or some of you, would probably remember in the early 90s, there was a serial killer and rapist running around by the name of Leslie Allen Williams. He wreaked havoc in this area and was finally caught out in Davisburg at the cemetery trying to load a lady into his trunk. But he had already killed and raped 4 women at that point. He was taken into court and introduced to the judge by one Detective Jerry Walker. A lot of people don't know that, but from there, Jerry went on. He was named Chief of Police in Walled Lake in 1995. In 1999 to 2010, he served as Chief of Police and Fire Chief as Public Safety Director. He had quite a career down there. In 2010, he became Holly Interim Village Manager.
I'd like to motion to give Dick Rozell another 2 minutes.
2 minutes, fine.
A second.
Motion by Brandon, support by Kinnaman to extend Mr. Rozell's time to
By an A.
2 minutes. We can do by a voice vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Thank
Motion
you. I'll
carries.
try to keep it brief. Became Holly Interim Village Manager in 2010 and was hired as a permanent manager in 2011. Throughout this time, he's done great things. And if you look at our different departments and our department heads, well, maybe DPW, but he's done an outstanding job with the people he's brought on as managers and the way he's managed them, and let them do their job too. I'd like to point out that he has balanced the budget every single year that he's been here for 13 years. Never had an unbalanced budget. He is also the longest serving manager in the history of Holly. So those are just a few things. I've had a few arrows thrown at him and heard some comments that I didn't care for. These are facts, whether you like him or not. These are facts. The guy has done an outstanding job, and he's a really good person. So I just wanted to get that out there. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rosell.
Mr. President, may I interrupt?
Yes.
I'd like to ask Mr. Gildner a question if you find that appropriate.
Yes.
Mr. Gildner, when it comes to the village manager's health, I wonder as council, which is essentially his employer, if we're supposed to be in compliance with HIPAA when it comes to disclosing information.
Well, we are, yes.
Correct, not the audience. So I would ask council then to refrain from any additional notes, such as where someone might be hospitalized or anything. With that reminder, thank you, and proceed.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else for public comment? Mr. Engelberg.
Good evening. Is this thing actually on?
Yes.
Okay.
It's on.
It's just kind of quiet. Tony Engelberg, 115 Cog Show. Well, it's been a while since I've been to one of these. As many of you know, I've been going through some stuff in my personal life over the last couple of years, but the sun is shining, life is good, and in fact, I'd like to real quick piggyback on what Dick said. Had a chance to visit with Jerry Walker probably about 6 months ago in his office for about an hour. We were talking about stuff that was going on with me and some of the relationship that him and I have had, which at times was good, at times not so good. But I told him that I wanted to do some good within this village. That for a while there was a period of darkness in my life where I felt like I'd kind of gotten off the track, but that when the right opportunity came, that I wanted to try and do some good. And we walked out and shook hands, and I'm honestly I'm hoping he's watching, because it was a great conversation. I'm sorry he's not here tonight. He and I have exchanged a couple of text messages in the last month or so, and really hope to see him back here soon. So the reason I'm here tonight, and I thought this was going to be on the agenda, and I realize it probably will be next month, but I wanted to propose to this council that the Village of Holly go back in time. At one time, we were the sister city of Leamington, Ontario. This was before I lived here, but being half Canadian, I always took pride when I came to visit Holly that as you came into Holly, there was a sign, "Welcome to the Village of Holly, sister city of Leamington, Ontario." And I'd been asking for a few years why that stopped, and nobody seemed to be able to give me an answer. So in keeping with what I was saying about wanting to do some good, I started to do some research. And I'm going to leave this with President Delaney when I leave. I took the time and reached out to Ricky Garrett, who is in Washington. She is the head of Sister Cities International. And her assistant also got back to me. That relationship between us and Leamington terminated in 2006. Nobody knows why. They keep records of when that ended. Nobody understands exactly why. The Sister City program, there's really no negatives to it. It is an opportunity for cultural, it's a mechanism for cultural, economic exchange, and an ability for governments, community organizations, and John Q. Public to engage in tourism and exchange, our schools. I was told that back when we were with Leamington that they would send representatives to the Carrie Nation Parade, and we would send representatives to their Tomato Festival. For those who don't know, Leamington is the tomato capital of Canada. So I would like to leave this information, and I'll come back and talk more next month. I'd like to see us get back involved with this. I will tell you the cost for the village, it's based on population. The cost for the village to get involved is $320 a year. I would like to make a public donation, no strings attached, to cover the first year of this program, should the council accept and get back in. I think after reading this, you guys will see that there are so many benefits. Our organizations can exchange. I talked to some friends who live in Fort Wayne, where I used to live, and they have a partnership with a city in Japan. And whenever somebody from Japan, through their sister city programs, comes to Fort Wayne, may I have one more minute?
I'd like to motion to give Mr. Engelberg 1 more minute.
Support.
Motion by Brandon, support by Musgrave to extend Mr. Engelberg's time by 1 minute. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion
you.
carries.
So when these visitors from Japan that come in through the sister city, they are sent to the Chamber of Commerce office or the mayor's office. They are greeted, basically given a ribbon cutting, so to speak. They're handed a welcome bag. Member of the city council or member of the chamber will give them a guided tour and make them feel like they are a dignitary when they're visiting the community. So there's really no negative to the Village of Holly to get involved with this. So I'd like to leave this with you guys today, and I will be back next month.
Very good. Thank you very much, Mr. Engelberg. Thank you. Anyone else for public comment? Mr. Love.
John Love, 200 North Saginaw. Is that working all right like that?
Yeah, that's fine.
I guess kind of an update on Tacky Town. We have new banners. These other ones are faded, ugly, and outdated. And DPW has it on their list to do, but they have problems with having enough people to do anything. Also, the depot, it's ready to be moved now. They're talking with the railroad to see what the timing is on this. And it already has the restrooms in the building. They would have to be modified. But they were talking about building another building of restrooms next to the depot. And that would just add to Tacky Town unnecessarily. So here we are, another year. We're on schedule. They also marked the trees to be cut down in front of the train club, but they forgot about those, so we're going to have a couple of oddball trees.
Thank you, Mr. Love. Anyone else for public comment? Ms. Watt.
Kristen Watt, 102 South First Street. This mic really is not working well. I want to kind of piggyback on some things Mr. Rozell had to say. And I want to use that as a really good example of the beauty of our community, and sometimes the strange bedfellows that it brings together. For the 4 years that I have been, I won't say every meeting, but consistently, not only coming to meetings, but working with probably every one of you in this room at some point on something. Mr. Walker and I have disagreed vehemently on many things. I've disagreed with pretty much every one of you up here at some point on something vehemently, personally or professionally. And many of the village staff, which, by the way, I applaud everyone that works in that office. I go in there fairly frequently. You're all amazing. Thank you. So my concern here is this. I know you guys are not at liberty to discuss. I was aware that Mr. Walker was sick, and maybe not I'm not friends with him the way Mr. Rozell is. So maybe you can take it as someone who, we've never been enemies, but we've never been friends, and you have to learn to work with people with whom you disagree to get things done. And there have been issues in the past that I've brought before the previous board and this one, where he may not have liked what I had to say, or maybe didn't morally agree with something I was discussing. But when it came time to do something in the community, to put something on that benefited all of the community. Whether he agreed with it or not, he supported me in doing it, and he followed his job. As has pretty much every other department head or anyone else I've had to deal with to get applications filled out or whatever. All the red tape you have to go through to do anything around here. And so he and I have developed a mutual respect for each other over the last couple of years. And I've always done my very best when I speak in public comment, even if I'm passionate or heated, to keep it about policy and not make it personal. Because what you do in your personal life and what you believe personally really, in my opinion, goes out the window in here. You're elected to do a job, and we can disagree about policy and not necessarily about personal. Like, if we want to do that, let's go to the coffee shop and have that conversation, right? So I do try to be very respectful in how I talk about issues, and hopefully I can get real heated about it, but it's about policy. And I want to say that knowing he was sick, I've been physically ill. I have not been at the last 2 meetings. I have been here tonight because I literally was sick in my spirit after reading what I have read on social media this week. The conspiracy theories that go on in this frickin' town literally make me, I don't even drink, I want to drink. It's nauseating and it's mind-blowing that we have, if you work for an employer, you are guaranteed sick time, hopefully, vacation time, privacy, and workers' rights. And I think a lot of times our community does not remember that he is he's hired. He is not elected. He does not owe, and I would say this about any village manager, mind you. This is not just, he didn't pay me to be here. I'm just saying, because that's my conscience. If you work for someone, y'all are his. I would like to ask for 2 more minutes, please.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Mr.
I'll
Perkins.
second it.
Right, motion by Perkins, support by Harrington to extend Ms. Watt's time by 2 minutes. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. And I'm really not saying all this, by the way, so much because I don't think any of you know it, but this is our only really form as a citizen to be able to be recorded where people go back in the community and watch this and listen to it. And hopefully it's educational for maybe people who don't know. I don't know everything, but on this issue, I know I'm right. And that is that regardless of whether you like a person, don't like a person, agree with a person, not agree with a person, any person who is employed by the village who chooses to ask for a request to not be at a meeting and it's approved, there's no obligation of this council to explain that to anyone in the community as to why. There are reasons. Obviously, you guys would not let people just not show up and do their jobs. You know, who would? What employer would? Secondly, I do have a real problem that there are, while you guys are elected by the public, we entrust you to make appointments to our boards and commissions. And while they are not elected, they are still a member of this government body and held to standards and take oaths. And I find it deplorable that there are people on our boards and commissions who are inciting misinformation or conspiracy theories in this community. And it has cost me many relationships in the last few months because I will not stand for it. They don't speak for me, even if you think they're my friend. So I hope Mr. Walker's doing okay, and I hope that he is, can just be sick and get better instead of half the town who didn't like him for a tree or for whatever frickin' reason or who his son-in-law is. I don't really give a darn. The man is sick, he is an employee, he is entitled to privacy, and people who are elected or appointed in this government body, whether, just learn to hush or go step down and go sit in the audience and say what you want. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Watt. Anyone else for public comment? Yes, Mr. Koskela.
Thank you, Mr. President, Council. So we've all been talking about the village
Oh,
manager.
sorry, name and address
yes.
for the record.
Thank you, Mr. President. Jim Koskela, 207 North Saginaw. This up a little higher here. So we've all been talking about our village manager here, and if you looked through the packet, you noticed his was the longest staff report in there. I mean, it seems like him to want to be speaking, so I think he wants to be back here, and looking forward to when that happens. In that packet, or in his report, he suggested making Mr. Watson the acting chief. I think we should move as fast as possible to remove that acting part and just make him the chief, because you can see all the dedication he has for our community, and I think he's a big asset, so let's work to keep him here. I think the other item is, it's on the agenda, so I'll wait. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Koskela. Anyone else for public comment? Yes, Ms. Wallace.
Angela Wallace, 709 Baird Street. I just had two things. Last month, Mr. Kinman mentioned, it might have been the month before, about the crosswalk at Holly Elementary. I started taking a closer look at how that works, because my child crosses there in the morning. I drive down there to the crosswalk every morning. I watch him cross. So an average of 2 times a week, in the morning only, does Kathy almost get hit. I don't know what happens in the afternoon, but I know that 2 times in the last month, my child was in the crosswalk when somebody decided to blow their horn and go right through, and Kathy has had to shield my child from cars. So it would be a great help if we did get those signs that are lit up that I know that we have, because I'm not the Lorax, but I don't hate trees. Trees are important, our village is important, every single job is important, but our children are the most important. Our residents are the most important. And if our children are almost getting hit and we have the means and the ability to be able to stop or at least lessen that, we need to do that as a village. We need to make sure that we are protecting them at all costs, and protecting Cal and Kathy, who are out there on a daily basis, putting their lives on the line to protect our children. And cars are just blowing by them, flipping them off, blowing their horn, going up on the sidewalk, trying to, get around the crossing guard. It is a huge problem, and I would welcome anybody to sit out there for a solid week and just count how many cars run that. Second thing is, I know you all work hard, and as being Thanksgiving's coming up, I just wanted to say thank you to each and every one of you who give your time, your efforts, your time at home to study the packets, to realize what is going on, to reach out and to find information, and I just want to say thank you to you. So, have a good Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wallace.
We accept pie. Just,
Anyone else for public comment? All right. Yeah. I had a request for a brief recess. It is 7:23. Let's come back at 7:30 on the dot. Thank you.
I won't
Well,
even
you
race
better
you there
be-
this time, Debbie.
You better be here.
I'll let you go.
You beat me to it, Deb. I was gonna say, anyone want a break?
Oh, thank you. A million thank
Pardon me?
How are you?
I gotta go home and put baby to sleep.
We good? I'll call the meeting back to order. Item number 1, under new business, consideration of the approval of council action request to select a CDBG public service and approval of resolution 2023-038, authorizing the clerk treasurer to execute the documents. Ms. Bigger gave us an explanation of our CDBG funds and the fact that we have $3,500 of those funds to allocate to either to one of two public services, subsistence payments through Neighbor for Neighbor, or Haven for battered and abused spouses. I don't think any further explanation is necessary there. What is the pleasure of council?
I would like to make a motion to approve the consideration of the approval council action request to select Neighbor for Neighbor and the approval of resolution 2023-038, authorizing the clerk treasurer to execute the documents.
I'll second that.
I believe that was, well, I know that was
Paul had it.
motion by Brandon and support by Harrington. Okay. Is there any council discussion desired on this item?
Yes. So I was looking over what they both have to offer, and man, does it suck that we have to choose one. They're both just amazing places. And I noticed that we did choose Haven in 21 and in 22. Neighbor for Neighbor, we haven't supported since 2019. And that was a big reason. Also, I know we have women that use Haven. And I believe, because that's kind of hard to say, because it's not like stats like that are readily available for obvious reasons. I believe that Neighbor for Neighbor serves more people directly in the community of Holly than Haven. But like I said, that's kind of hedged.
I agree with that. This is going to be a rough year.
Haven is a wonderful facility.
Absolutely.
And they help a lot of people. I know they get a lot of funding too from United Way. In fact, I've been to PATH, which is Pontiac Area Transitional Housing, which is sponsored a lot by that. And it's a good organization, but as you say, we did the year before last, so let's give somebody else a chance.
I would say that in the last probably 3 weeks, I have given out Neighbor for Neighbor as a reference for people in need. You know, it's challenging when the Chamber of Commerce starts getting calls for where can people get assistance. And they have been on my list. So I think this is a good choice.
I agree.
Very good. Is there any public comment desired on this item? Yes, Mr. Shield.
Ryan Shields, 220 LeGrand Street, Holly, Michigan. I'm just going to say that Neighbor for Neighbor is a more local charity, and it can probably benefit Holly more than Haven. And Haven, yeah, I understand that it can benefit people on a broader scale, but I do believe that it would, in these challenging times that we're facing now, I believe that Neighbor for Neighbor would be the more beneficial one right now. Maybe down the road, you can look at doing Haven maybe at another time.
Thank you, Mr. Shield. Anyone else for public comment on this item? Seeing none, Hearing none. Ms. Bigger, roll call vote, please.
Harrington.
Yes.
Kinnaman.
Yes.
Kyer.
Yes.
Perkins.
Yes.
Musgrave.
Yes.
Brandon.
Yes.
Delaney.
Yes. Motion carries. Item number 2, under new business, consideration of the approval of council action request to share sidewalk and tree work costs with the DDA. Mr. Clausen, would you like to speak on that, please?
Yeah, the DDA and the village have been working together on several projects. A couple of them have been brought up in the meeting, but one of them we've been working on over the last year or so is removing the locust trees in the downtown area as the second phase of removing those and putting new trees in with grates. The first phase was done a couple years ago in the first block of the downtown area. So traditionally, the village pays for, on major and local streets, part of the sidewalk cost. So working with Nick Klemp and the DDA, we offered up to partner with him on this and see if council would approve, sharing the cost of part of this project.
Very good. What is the pleasure of council?
Would that CDBG money be applied to this?
No, it could not.
That's a different tree?
Yeah, that's.
Yes. It has to be in a certain area
Okay,
for CDGB to allow it.
okay.
I'll make the motion that we approve the cost of $20,000 that staff is recommending we contribute to the Major Street Fund balance for the DDA Trans Sidewalk Project.
A second.
Motion by Musgrave, support by Perkins, to approve the council action request to share sidewalk and tree work costs with the DDA. Is there any council discussion desired on that item?
I have a question. So is this half of the cost?
No.
What was the total cost of the project?
$96,000, I believe.
Okay.
Did you say 96?
Yes.
So it's an overrun of 20,000 or?
No, we had talked about, we had gotten quotes for trees and the sidewalk work. And when we walked through with the contractor for, me and Mr. Klemp walked the sidewalks and we marked it out. And we were gonna try to save some of the slabs, but when we did a walkthrough with the contractor, he said he could do it would look better than trying to piecemeal it in and checkerboard it in because it's a supposed aggregate type of concrete down there. And so we agreed, and then that's where some of the costs changed. So we had agreed initially that I would ask for the $20,000 out of there, and then the DDA would make up if there was any overages.
So we'd have been requested for 20,000 whatever the cost of the project was.
Yes, originally we
Okay.
were looking at a $75,000 to $80,000 project. So.
Okay.
When will the project be wrapped up?
They were planting trees today. I think they may have a couple left to go. And then the contractor's gonna be setting the grades, and then we should be wrapped up by then.
Before the snow flies?
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
that was our goal. That's what we
Okay.
wanted to, we're running out of nice weather.
But the DDA is paying for everything except $20,000,
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
What's the criteria for the major street funds?
It has to be considered a major street, and Saginaw is considered a major street, so.
And is this in competition with any other projects?
No. This would be a budget. So.
That was just for a little bit of transparency due to a lot of social media complaints about where our money is being spent
And there's-
currently. So
yeah,
this
it-
has to be spent on streets.
Yes, major streets and local streets are separate fund balances, separate budget lines compared to general fund budgets.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from council? Are there any public comments on this item? Sir?
Very brief. My name is Robert Donahue. I'm a former Oakland County planner in charge of downtown development. I just want to make note of the fact that it is very common for cities, villages, and townships to share in project costs with the DDA. I would say the vast majority do that. So you're doing everything above board, exactly the way you should do it. Great job.
Thank you very much, sir. Anyone else for public comment on this item? Seeing none, hearing none. Ms. Bigger, roll call vote, please.
Kinnaman.
Yes.
Kyer.
Yes.
Perkins.
Yes.
Musgrave.
Yes.
Brandon.
Yes.
Harrington.
Yes.
Delaney.
Yes. Motion carries. Item number 3, under new business, consideration of the approval of council action request for the contract to repair, excuse me, to repair the village offices. Ms. Bigger.
I issued a request for proposal, as we stated, once it was voted on at the last council meeting. The request was released the next day. And the deadline was November 9th to receive bids in. We received one bid from Victory Development LLC. The total cost, including everything and the addition, is $520,000. That does not include the generous donation of Mr. Perkins of the painting, which lowered it to $520, by the way. The general contractor has waived his fee also, which kept it down to $520. Also, as you noted, you may have noted in my memo, building official Steve McGee has volunteered to work closely with Victory Development LLC during the construction process, even though he's actually going to be retired soon.
Right. Very good, thank you. What is the pleasure of council?
I'll make the motion that we accept the bid from Victory Development LLC in the amount of $520,000 or less, hopefully.
Well, could be less.
It
Mr.
could be
Alfano
less.
and I have spoken, and there's several other contractors around town that want to do what they can.
Right.
Very good. We have a motion. Is there support?
I like less.
I do too.
Just so you know.
I like it too.
I'll support this.
Right. Motion by Musgrave, support by Brandon, to accept the bid from, was it?
Victory.
Victory, in the amount of $520,000 or less. Council discussion on this item.
Yes. I supported this to get the discussion going. I'm really not sure what I think right now. There's, as Kristen Ms. Watt touched on earlier, a lot of conspiracy theories right now. What is the process of soliciting bids?
We released a request for proposals. It was listed, it was published in the Tri-County Times. It was listed outside the village offices, and it was also listed on the village website.
And several local contractors were also contacted to solicit local contractors to bid on the project.
And none of the local contractors solicited or submitted a bid? Okay. And so it sounds like we followed the process. And you told me where that was the end of my questions.
And I believe it was mentioned already, but there was only one bid submitted,
There was
correct?
only
Yes.
one bid received. Yes.
Right.
Have we ever posted any requests for quotes on Sigma's website? It would be the state of Michigan, which opens it up to a lot more contractors. I know that the school building was posted, that contractor was posted on Sigma.
We have not, normally a job this small is not going to get much attention on a big site like that throughout the state.
Agreed.
Our consultant, H2A, when she gave her presentation, she talked about the timeline and then our expedited timeline with the schools. By waiting to solicit this late in the year, a lot of contractors that would probably bid on a job this size have already filled their spring schedule. So to try to fit this in, you know, and we all know that trying to find, and me especially, trying to find work or help is at a premium right now.
So when we ask for the request for quote, we're giving them a time frame of this needs to be completed by.
No, there was no deadline on the request for proposal. It was just a request for proposal.
Right. Okay.
Just a deadline to turn in the proposal, but not a
Exactly.
deadline to get the work done.
I do not see any information on where the funding comes from for this.
Oh, here we go. Right now, we have, well, let me pass it out. I have the available funding. Thank you. Oops,
Nope,
sorry.
we're good, Deb.
Thank you.
I have available funding for the $520,000 that includes $153,000 out of general fund. Everything else is actually available in our balances. To replace that $150,000, I have listed the new revenue that's coming in, meaning new revenue, it's not actually tied to anything yet, it's brand new. In 24-25, we will receive $113,600 in new revenue between the marijuana license and the state marijuana distribution that we will get. And in 25-26, the balance of it from marijuana license and the state marijuana distribution of $40,000, which will replace the $153,000 in 2 years.
Will this 520 be paid in increments?
Yes.
For the $10,000 from marijuana licenses, I know we talked about when we gave the parks their budget, that 10K was supposed to go to the parks, so.
No, that was a donation to the parks last year from the marijuana.
Okay.
From the dispensary itself.
The dispensary donated that.
Right. Any other questions or
So
comments?
what's
from-
the 60,000 from building and grounds?
That was money that we already budgeted to do the roof at Cyclone Park.
Okay.
It was in our budget. There was actually more in that budget line item, but 60 of it was for the roof at Cyclone Park.
Any other questions or comments from council on this item?
No, we gotta get going on it.
No.
I had forgot about senior transportation since now
Oh.
WODA.
WODA.
Yeah.
WODA.
So.
Sure.
That's a big positive.
Absolutely. Is there any public comment desired on this item? Yes, Ms. Watt.
Kristen Watt, 102 South First Street, number 3. I just want to point out that with our, I just saw a post yesterday about, I think all the fire departments and stuff, we're working with the PD Pantry to come together to do 75 dinners, I think, for families here in Holly for Thanksgiving. This is just one example that we celebrate, we cheer, everybody's working together to get things done. People want to pitch in and help out because they actually love their community. Like, that's a bummer that not more than one person submitted this bid. But I think that, going back to my previous comment about conspiracy theories, as recently as last night at the DDA meeting, that Victory LLC has invested their time, their money, well, not maybe the LLC, but the owner of many businesses in the community has donated their time, their effort. I watched that person go out and plant their own plants and dig things and work with their workers and have a work ethic, both of them, in their separate entities. And I don't quite know sometimes while there's like an energy about this subject that if they went through the process and they're willing to not take a fee to get this community project done, why we don't praise or celebrate, and I don't mean praise the person, but like get as excited about Mr. Perkins being willing to paint something or whatever. This is what Holly does. This is what we all have bleeding heartstrings in the Holly Forum about. Man, I love my community. We all come together when it matters. And then all of a sudden with a project like this, because of the contention between where this location was going to be, I think we're missing the mark on the fact that the people who didn't want marijuana places, I get it. You don't believe in that? Cool, whatever. But we just had money we didn't have before on a limited budget to help compensate for some of these costs. We have community members who do not need a place to park. They have plenty of parking all over the community. That was what was mentioned last night at the DDA meeting. Like, that was the reason. That's ridiculous. So I think we should, like, regardless of whether you wanted the building to be here or there, whatever, that's moot. We voted, it's done. Now we're doing what smart moms do, which is figure out a way to pay for things and get it done right and cheap. And we should thank any person in this community who's willing to pull up their bootstraps and go out here and make this park something for our community. Because we certainly don't have the parks budget to do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Watt. Mr. Rozell?
Dick Russell, 512 East Maple. I'd kind of like to back up what Ms. Watt just said. And if I were another contractor and I were looking at this, and it's on the record that our contractor agreed to do this pro bono. So if you're another contractor, why do you want to compete with that? You know, they don't want to go and do it for free. And then we have Mr. Perkins, who has generously offered to paint it. They aren't going to find a painter that's going to do it for free either. So the bottom line is we've got very good, reputable people with a proven track record that are willing to build this thing at a cost that no one is going to match. And so I think she's right. You have to say, hey, great, let's go on. So that's my opinion.
Thank you, Mr. Rozell. Anyone else for public comment? Hearing none, seeing none. Ms. Bigger, roll call, please.
Kyer,
No.
Perkins,
Yes.
Musgrave,
Yes.
Brandon,
Yes.
Harrington,
Yes.
Kinnaman,
It's a rough choice here. I'm going to say no in a statement about where I think we're dealing with funds only.
Delaney.
Yes. Motion carries. Item number 4.
I'm sorry,
Yes.
process question, please.
Mhm.
I feel like in my recollection, Mr. Gildner, that in certain instances when we're spending large amounts of money, we need a percentage of council that's over the standard, just majority vote. No? Okay,
No.
thank you.
Thank you. Item number 4, special event, Holly Dickens Festival and Holly Dickens Festival Parade.
These two items are in your packet only because they were given to us under the 60-day deadline. Obviously, everybody knows the Dickens Festival and the Dickens Festival Parade with the tree lighting. We've had them for many years. I believe this is the 50th anniversary. So we would ask council to approve the special events.
And I would remind council, we could always, of course, combine these two special events, especially considering how related these two events are.
I'd like to make, oh.
Hmm?
Is there advice from the staff on combining those motions?
No, I believe I did combine them on the agenda.
Those two are. We could just include the Run Like the Dickens as
Run
well.
Like the
They're all
Dickens is separate.
at the
Yes, that
same
was,
time. And
that was what I was saying,
I
yeah.
had assumed you meant that,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
I would make a motion to approve items 4 and 5, the Dickens Festival Parade, and Run Like the Dickens events.
I'll second.
Right. Motion by Kinnaman, support by Brandon, to approve special events, Holly Dickens Festival and Holly Dickens Festival Parade, and Run Like the Dickens. Is there any council discussion desired on this item? Is there any public comment desired on this item? Hearing none, seeing none, Ms. Bigger, roll call, please.
Perkins.
Yes.
Musgrave.
Yes.
Brandon.
Yes.
Harrington.
Yes.
Kinnaman.
Yes.
Tyre.
Yes.
Delaney.
Yes. Motion carries. Item number 6, under new business, formerly item number 9, under consent agenda. This is regarding the approval to rezone 107 Oakwood Street from commercial to neighborhood office commercial. I pulled this down simply to open up just a little bit of discussion. I don't think we need to belabor it too much, but discussion about the posting, the notice of the of that meeting. I believe that it was erroneously posted that that meeting would take place at 7 p.m. rather than 6 p.m. And there was a bit of confusion. There was one gentleman in particular who arrived at the meeting late, who wanted to speak and didn't have the opportunity to speak. I think I have that right. Ms. Bigger, did you have anything to add to that?
No, that is correct.
Okay. And was there anything from council on that? Any questions or comments? And of course, I would just say that, of course, it's very important that we as council and staff are careful to give proper notice regarding meetings of our councils, our committees, our boards and commissions, because of course that's what makes public participation possible. And I would just like to give my personal apology to the public for that mistake, and it will not happen again. Is there any public comment on that item?
We didn't make a motion or anything yet.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, we still have to
Oh,
approve
yeah.
it.
Yeah. Well, I suppose, yeah, we have to approve it.
Would that one person have made a difference in how the planning commission voted?
I actually chaired that meeting.
Yeah.
So I can give, and spoke with the gentleman afterwards. When he got up to speak, he arrived in time to actually do public comment at the end of the meeting. And where he started going with his concerns, I actually asked if I could explain to him what was really happening. And when we explained it, he was very content. And thought that it was going to become offices, and it was really changing the property back to what it had been previous to about 5 years ago, and that it was going to be actually a quadplex homes, and he was quite content. Actually had a conversation with the builder afterwards, and felt very good about it.
Thank you.
Since he wasn't heard before he was heard late, but I know it's unusual, but could we hear the public comment before we vote to approve or not this?
Certainly.
Yeah, we need a second and then discussion.
Well, I know it's unusual, but it's not out of hand.
We did a
to
little
allow-
out. I did a little out of order.
Yeah.
Yeah, so could we allow public comment first?
Oh, before we
Yes.
make a motion in support, you mean?
Yes, I know it's
Oh.
unusual, but
Certainly. Yeah.
That
Public
is
comment?
very unusual.
it can be permitted. I checked in Robert's rules.
Public comment on this item.
Which was why I wanted to.
My name is William By. I own 107 Oakwood. And the gentleman's name was Richard, and we both talked to him after it. His fear was I was going to build a office building there. Completely opposite of what I wanted to do. What I'm going to be bringing forth here shortly is a plan for a 4-unit townhome to be built there. So, that's it. That's all I have to say.
All right. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else for public comment on this item? Yes, Ms. Wallace.
I know I'm walking a fine line here, Angela Wallace, 709 Barrett Street. The reason I brought this up to Mr. Delaney was because the gentleman came in and he sat down at 6:45. And he was like, how can you guys be done with your meeting? And he was like wagging his paper, and I'm like, how could we be done with it? I mean, we're done. And then I started doing some research, and I looked, I was like, oh my goodness, his paper says 7 o'clock. We start at 6. So that's where the discrepancy came in with that. But I also wonder how many people from the public maybe came at 7:05 and we were already done and gone, and who didn't get to speak on that matter. So that's where I am coming from as being on the planning commission. Was there anybody else that we were already gone out of the building at 7 o'clock or 10 after? Were they gonna come in and talk during the public hearing? So that was my concern, so, just so you know where I'm coming from on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wallace.
Could,
Mr. DeSessa.
end up actually talking to Gilder. Mr. Gilder.
This is 5100 East Holly Road. I just want to point out there, I think a couple people there that night that were under the same misimpression about the starting time, but that's here nor there. I mean, what I appreciate is the transparency of you guys looking at this. Mistakes happen all the time, but thank you for being transparent and pulling this out.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, so I would like to maybe ask Mr. Gildner, because the documentation that went to the public was not the correct time, what does that do with that public hearing?
It does not invalidate the decision that was made. A person who can be deemed aggrieved by that decision can always appeal it. Now, whether or not just a member of the public can fit that definition of aggrieved, it's just not anybody. Even if they're entitled to notice, they don't necessarily fit that definition. So it does not invalidate the decision. It could be grounds for someone to argue that it is a suspect decision, but that's all it is. It's not.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Gildner. With that, we are still in need of a motion and support on this item.
I'll make a motion to approve the consideration of the approval to rezone 107 Oakwood Street from commercial C to neighborhood office commercial NOC.
I'll second.
Motion by Brandon, support by Perkins, to approve to rezone 107 Oakwood Street from commercial to neighborhood office commercial. Ms. Bigger, roll call vote, please.
Wait,
Oh.
Council discussion.
We did that first.
We did?
Yeah.
Can we do it again? Well, because I wanted to hear his input first.
Okay. Go.
I felt
Yes,
that
yes.
might bear some weight.
Sure, sure.
So I spoke with Planning Commissioner Cascella earlier today because, well, when I first read it, I thought it said Oakland Street, which is my street. Why are these changes happening? And anyways, he filled me in on what these words meant from commercial to neighborhood office commercial. And that part of the master plan for that street is to go from commercial at some point to closer to neighborhoody, if I understood him correctly. So I wonder if that would also have some bearing if anyone were aggrieved that it's still in line with the master plan, and we just might need to take note of that that's an important factor as well.
Yeah, that was one of the things that we did look at when we were considering it. Number one, yes, the master plan does have that entire area as NOC, which has a broad range of things that can go in it. It had previously been NOC, and a previous owner had purchased the property and intended to do something that required commercial. And it did get rezoned to commercial for that, but the way they wanted to operate the business was without a building, and that was not allowed. And so they did not move forward with that, and it's taken them a while, and we have a great opportunity for a different owner now to do something, which means that it needs to go back to what it originally was. And why is it not residential as well? Because it's housing, is because it's 4 units. The maximum you can have for residential is 2 duplex, and since it's more than 2, it has to be the NOC, and no housing is allowed in commercial, so this is where it fits. So that's the
Thank you
summation
for-
of a whole meeting in a nutshell.
Thank
Very
you for
good.
doing everything backwards, Mr. President.
Thank you very
It
much.
seems relevant in this unusual instance.
Moving forwards by moving backwards.
Okay.
Ms. Bigger, roll call vote, please.
Musgrave. Brandon.
What are we voting on? Yes.
Harrington.
Yes.
Kinnaman.
Yes.
Kyer.
Yes.
Perkins.
Yes.
Delaney.
Yes. Motion carries. Reports. Mr. Gildner, do you have anything for us?
The only thing, it's just, and it's only because it's been so long, but you may remember that Greenstones was one of the applicants for your marijuana establishments that was not selected. They sued, and that case has been pending for quite a while. I filed a motion asking that the case be dismissed. That has been under advisement now at least 3 months, maybe 4 months. So at some point, I'll have an update. She'll either let that case proceed or she'll have thrown it out. But it's been so long that I didn't want people to think it had just disappeared. That's all.
Thank you. Ms. Bigger, anything to add to your written report?
Nothing really to add to my written report other than I do have the new Republic Recycle calendar for 2024. I have some copies out on the table if anybody would like some.
Great. Thank you very much.
Grab one.
Very good. Boards and commission updates and council comments. Ms. Kyer.
Parks is not meeting until January. However, I did want to talk about a couple things. Halloween we had, and I just wanted to say thank you to the VFW. They sponsored all the wagon rides for the kids. Wingelmeyer Furniture gave out all the cider. Holly Donuts, we had over 1,000 donuts that they volunteered to us, and they went like hotcakes. I'd also like to say thank you to CA Lamont, who provided the decorations. I just appreciate all the businesses in town who really support their small communities. We had a special meeting for parks in terms of where we would like to do some budgeting. We were waiting for a request for pickleball courts. Unfortunately, it's going to be about $19,000 to resurface the pickleball courts, which is, of course, all of our budget. So instead, we decided to go with upgrading and repairing the parking lot at Waterworks, since we now have a new company in there doing kayak launches. And we've also had some complaints from residents about the parking lot there. And then we will also be getting a new mom and tot swing to kind of backfill. When we put in the new structure at Lakeside, it's geared more towards older children, so there's nothing really for those with toddlers. So we wanted to make sure that there was something for toddlers at that park. And then the last thing conspiracy theory has been thrown around a lot tonight, and I just want to make sure I am not included in the next one. Mr. Iafano, my no vote is in no reflection of your job or the work that you do. I am a big fan of that. It is more, again, in the policy and procedure where we have consistently got one bid. And I know in some instances that's just what happens, but just as a normal person, when I have a project to do in my home, 3 bids is a minimum for me. So I just wanted to clear that up, that it wasn't against you personally. It was more on the process.
Thank you very much, Ms. Kyer. Mr. Kinnaman.
I'm going to start with piggyback on that because I have seen your work. I love your work, and I enjoy, our conversations and the things that I have seen you do in our community. And once again, my no vote was not against you as the person giving that bid. I just have some struggles with some of the stuff we've got otherwise going on with this, with funding and some things like that with it. Planning Commission, we just discussed what we had in Planning Commission. I have a question for Mr. Clausen about North Holly Road. Is that going to get repaired before winter?
Probably not permanently repaired, but we will get some kind of patch out there because there is a rut. We've been waiting on a new hydrant to replace out there. We'll have to tear the road up more, so instead of fixing it and tearing it up again, and the contractor or the vendor did not get the hydrant ordered in time, so we're working on it.
So the hydrant will probably be springtime?
Yes.
Okay.
We don't like to work in water.
But yet you'll fix the hole.
Yes, we'll do something with that hole temporarily for the winter.
Great, thank you. That's
Punchkis.
Punchkis.
Punchkis. Just to notice that the old dealership is down. That's kind of a planning commission thing. That project is starting to move forward for the demolition and replacement of that. I'm not sure how many of you know that Wingelmeyer Furniture is celebrating 165 years in business as the oldest furniture store in the state of Michigan and owned continuously by the same family as well. And so just kind of a shout out to a legacy with a great family there. I want to say happy Thanksgiving to everybody, and also happy Dickens Festival. Come out and celebrate 50 years of a great festival, and I hear they've got some wonderful things in the plans. The parade will be on Friday, Black Friday this year, and it will start at the VFW and come down Saginaw. It will not be on Maple Street this year, so it's coming the other direction. So just a couple of things to note.
Thank you, Mr. Kinnaman. President Pro Tem Brandon.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Roselle, the story you told about Mr. Walker today, Leslie Allen Williams raped and killed one of my friends, and I never knew that our village manager was one of the people that brought him to justice. Give me just a second. That's what this popcorn's for. So thank you to Mr. Walker. Sister Cities, Tony Engelberg brought to me a little while ago. And I'd love to see a committee made to explore options and pick a city and make cultural exchanges. I'd love to see a library employee represented on that committee, and I'm wondering if we can maybe get something along the lines put on next month's agenda for that, and how do we go about that?
Say pretty please.
Pretty please?
That's how we do that.
Okay, moving on. Holly Township Library now has a teen book club. Call them for details. It already has 13 members. Their first meeting is coming up. They haven't even picked a book yet. And last, lit up signs for the crosswalk. Do we have these? Can they go up? Who do I?
Yes,
How do
we have.
I will literally drive over and put them in front of my house for you.
So that doesn't need anything from us. They're like good to go?
Yes.
Cool. Thank you.
Mr. Perkins.
HTC has not met. Happy Thanksgiving to y'all. That's all I have.
Ms. Musgrave.
Community development, we've already met and given our suggestions. There is one thing I would like to put on record that Mr. Cullis stated previously about the fact that he had never said that he was going to open that up to potential other businesses out there. How would I know that if I wasn't told that? That was not a true statement. So I just wanted that on record. And also, happy Thanksgiving to everyone. Have a safe and full holiday.
Very good. Thank you. Mr. Harrington.
I met with Hyde, and we had a presentation by Tina in the beginning of our meeting tonight, and I'm ecstatic that they got the funding for the program. That's all I have.
Thank you, sir. The only thing I have to say in the spirit of the season is that I am thankful for the opportunity to serve the village and the people of Holly, and to do so with each and every member of this council. And I mean that. Happy Thanksgiving to you all, and happy Thanksgiving to you all. With that, we are adjourned until our next regular meeting on Tuesday, December 12th at 6 p.m. Meeting adjourned.